Welcome back to Live in the Sermon podcast, where we have authentic conversations about impactful subjects with real people. Today, I have Brady Wiggins on the podcast, and we discussed two different topics. One, his testimony, obvious, right? Two, his most recent adventure to Honduras. Not on a vacation, but on a mission trip. He went over there and did some really fun, cool things, and the Lord showed up in awesome ways, as we expect. But his testimony is peppered with just humility and grace, and just how the Lord shows up and pulls down our idols and the things that we've placed above him. And in his, specifically, as you see in the title, it is football. God removed that from him in a way that was so gentle and so loving, and had given him a greater purpose, a greater calling upon his life. And he's living it out now as he came back from Honduras and has story after story to tell us of how God worked and how he's continuing to work among the people there and in his life. So be sure to stick around for the listener retention gimmick, where we will discuss someone to pray for or something to pray for, as well as a good book that I will recommend. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode. Welcome back to Live in the Sermon podcast. Today, I have a very special guest on with us. He goes by the name of Brady Wiggins. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely, dude. I'm stoked that you're here, and I'm stoked to have this conversation. You got a pretty cool testimony from what I've heard, and I'm excited for you to share it. But we're also, as you heard in the intro, going to talk about his recent adventure, or I should say mission trip to Honduras. And so we want to unpack that. I wanted to get someone who's pretty much almost, not directly, but almost directly walking off of the plane and stepping back into the States, and willing to just share what happened, what went down, and how the Lord is using it, and so on and so forth. So let's just start with your testimony, man. So tell me, what was life growing up, in South Alabama?
Yeah, man.
Family? Did you know Jesus? What was going on?
Yeah, so I grew up in church my whole life. Went to City Hope, where it used to be Bay Community, but it's City Hope now. So
Right.
I've been at the same church for a while. I grew up every Sunday going to church. But even in doing all that, I still, like, nothing in my life looked like I knew Jesus. I was kind of living like a double-sided life, but I didn't know that. I thought I was a Christian, but anyways, it took me going through a really rough time to find out, or to truly find Jesus. And so that's kind of what I'm going to jump into. So 2 years ago, I was playing football actually at South Alabama, University of South Alabama, and I was doing really well.
What position were you playing?
I was playing safety.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
safety. But
Cool.
so I was doing really well, and I remember in our first game, I got to play like 3 or 4 plays on special teams, which is like all the kickoffs and stuff like that. And it was absolutely amazing. It was probably the most fun thing I've ever done in my life, to get to play in a D1 football game. And I remember I was living out a childhood dream of mine, something that I've always wanted to do. And just like seeing like my name in my locker, like it was just so cool. Like and it was just amazing. I just was on a mountaintop, and I remember after my first game, I was like, wow, I get to do this for 3 more years. Like, this is so awesome. But after the game, I started having like a little bit of neck pain in my neck, and it wasn't anything crazy. Like, I played with like way worse injuries in terms of like pain management. But I still told the doctor about it, and he was like, "Where's it hurting in your neck?" And I showed him. I was like, "It's hurting like right in the middle, like in my like spine area." And he was like, "Well, that's not normal. We need to get you an MRI." So I was like, "All right,
Mm.
let's do that." So I got an MRI, and then I had to sit the following week out because I was waiting on those results to come back. So I missed our game that we were supposed to play against Central Michigan. And then the following week, we were supposed to go play against UCLA, which is like, it's UCLA, like a big school in California. And I
Dang.
remember I was just so excited to be able to play in their stadium. And it was just, that's where they had like the Rose Bowl every year. So
Yeah.
literally like something I've always just dreamed of doing as a kid, getting to play in a
Wow.
place like that. And so that Monday, I go in to get my results, my MRI results, and I expect them to tell me that it's just something like minor, like you might just have to like wear like a neck brace that like the big linebackers wear, but
Right.
you're good. Like I thought they were just gonna clear me and I would go play against UCLA. But when I went to the meeting, it just caught me so off guard. They told me that that I was not good to keep playing, but that I had a herniated disc in the back of my neck. And basically, they told me that
Mm.
I was one hit away from neck surgery or worse, like being paralyzed, and that I couldn't play anymore. And it was just like that. And just absolutely, I was just devastated. And
Yeah.
I just remember after that moment, I just went into just a deep, deep depression and just went completely like off the rails in
Uh,
my life. And I remember like I was directing my anger like at God. I was like, Lord, like, why did you let this happen to me? And just because I was like, Lord, like I'm a believer. Like, why didn't you keep me from getting injured? Like, why can't you heal me?
mm.
All these things. And I was just so angry at him and I was angry at the world. And so because of that, um, I turned to like drugs, alcohol, like partying, like all that types of stuff, just trying to like not deal with my pain and depressed thoughts and just anything to keep my mind like distracted from like this big loss. And then because I was so mad at God, like I just completely like stopped living for him. Well, honestly, I wasn't even living for him to begin with, but I stopped like acknowledging him and just completely like stiff armed
Right.
God. I was like, I don't want anything to do with you. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that made things that made things so much worse. And I remember
Oh, I
just
bet.
the angry state I was in. Like I just completely stopped going to school. Just stopped doing my schoolwork completely. Just purposely failed all of my classes. I just didn't care. The snowball kept going down the hill and getting worse and bigger and bigger. And I remember I was living with my parents at the time, and my dad one day he asked me to. It was something simple, just like to put up my laundry, and I just like blew up on him. I don't even know why. Like it triggered me so bad, but I just started like screaming
Oh,
at him, like got so angry that I just was like, I'm moving out. I moved out of my house and started living with a friend and my twin brother. I have a twin brother. His name's Brody. It's kind of cool.
okay.
But so I started living with them in a separate house. That just led to me like just completely living in a dark hole, and I just started just all I wanted to do was like smoke weed. So I just smoked weed every day just for months, just living in isolation from everyone, everything. And it was horrible. I just remember being so depressed and anxious. Eventually though, during this time I had like I just completely I reasoned in my head that God just wasn't real. I just thought that
Mm.
he wasn't real anymore. That's just where I was at.
Yeah,
And
it's like it's almost like he abandoned you essentially in your mind,
yeah,
right? Is that kind of how you
right,
feel? Like, dude, you've called me to go and be a football player. You called me to
right.
go do this thing, and God, I could use it to glorify you and the
Exactly.
kingdom.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like he strips that away from you, and it's like,
Yeah.
wait, why did you do that?
Yeah, and I was like, this makes no sense, Lord. Like, you know how good football is for me.
Mm.
Like, you know, like I've always needed like structuring my life, just telling God what I need. and
Yeah. My
and
will, not yours.
yeah. And so I was just so angry. I was like, Lord, this makes no sense. Like, you don't know what you're
Mm.
doing. And which is kind of funny
That always
now
that
looking
always
back.
leads to a good spot.
Yeah. And so anyways, I remember I had to move out of that house I was living in because I didn't have a job and I wasn't paying rent. I was kind of just like mooching off the people that I was living with, which just wasn't good. And so finally they were like, hey man, like you can go. I was like, all right. So eventually I moved back into my house and it just wasn't good, like with my parents and stuff. My parents, they welcomed me back into my house, of course, but it
Yeah.
just like things just weren't good. But this all leads up to like one night in my room when it was just like at the lowest of lows points in my life where I was just in my room. I think it was probably like 2 a.m. in the morning. And I just finally just had enough. I just cried out to Jesus. And I was like, Jesus, like, if you're real, I need you to show up. And
Mm.
if you are real, like, I'll give you my life. And I remember for the first time in my life, like, he spoke to me and it was crazy. And it completely changed my life. And he spoke to me and he told me who I was. And he told me that I was called to ministry. And he told me just that he loved me. And
Mm.
it was absolutely amazing because like I grew up in church and stuff, and so like I'd always heard people talk about how like God told them this or God told them that, and but in my head I don't know if I fully like believed them. I thought people were just like tricking themselves into
Mhm.
hearing like his voice. Um, but then I actually heard it for myself, and I was
Wow.
like, whoa, like this is crazy. And it wasn't like an audible voice like Brady, like, but he
Yeah.
does speak that way sometimes, but it wasn't like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
it was more like a quiet, still like whisper, but it was like so
Mm.
clear. And it was just like thoughts that were like coming into my brain that I just knew they weren't mine. And they were also like
Mm.
really like just profound, intelligent thoughts. And I was like, that's definitely aren't mine.
Chill, bro.
I
You're
was like,
intelligent. Stop, bro. You're intelligent.
I'm just playing. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just knew it, they just weren't, I just knew it was God. And I had like a whole conversation with him that probably lasted like an hour and it was
Mm.
amazing. And
Mm.
I remember I just got so excited because I realized that night that Jesus was real. And I just realized the weight of that, like what that meant. Like that meant
Mm.
um, that I no longer like had to fear anything, like because like he's risen from the dead. So because of
Mhm.
that, like every single battle's already been won, and that
Right.
my future was secure, and that he had a
Mm.
perfect plan for me that I could just
Mm.
step
That's good.
into, and that I was like, all right, if Jesus is real, that means that the Bible is real too, and
Yeah.
uh, so I was like, so that made me realize that like anything that I find in the Bible is true, and I can stand on it. You can take to the bank, you can cash it in,
Yeah.
like it's true, like
Yeah.
his word is true. And so it was just amazing. And towards the end of my encounter with Jesus, I remember he told me, well, first of all, I remember I was just dancing around my room, like this room that I'm in, my room. And
Wow.
it was just amazing. Like I was just so excited because I realized that I'd won my battle, like against the devil, that he would no longer like have any
Wow.
power over me, that he would no longer be able to deceive me.
Mm.
And that forever, just for all of eternity, like I was gonna have a relationship with this God that loves me so much, and it was absolutely amazing. So,
Yeah. So you had a
but
little celebration.
yeah,
A little
uh,
celebration there.
I started like they call it the gritty. I started like hitting the gritty like on the devil, and but I was just it was awesome. But
That's fun.
I remember towards the end of it, the Lord was like, he's like, go tell your mom. And at first I was like, what? I was like, that's crazy. I was like, because I was
And it's
thinking
and it's
like,
and it's 3 a.m. at this point, right?
right, yeah, it's like 3 a.m. And
Yeah.
I remember I was thinking like, if I go down there and I just start like blabbering away, like she's gonna think I'm absolutely crazy if I just start like wake her up, and she's probably just gonna tell me to go back to sleep. But I just felt it so strong, like I
Mm.
just kept hearing that, like go tell your mom.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna trust it. And so I went downstairs, and like the Lord, he already knew this, but my mom, she was already awake,
Mm.
and she was on the couch downstairs in the living room. And I went up to her and I told her everything that just happened, like my whole encounter with the Lord. And I remember she just starts like bawling, crying. And I was like, what? Like, you should be excited. I was like, why are you crying? Um, and she was like, no, she's like, come here, look. And there were tears of joy, but she was like, come here, look. And I remember she was reading this book. And in this book, she had like things highlighted in it. And she was on the couch, those highlighted parts, she was praying them over me at the exact same time I was having my encounter. So
Wow.
simultaneously, while I'm like the Lord's like speaking to me,
Mm.
she's downstairs on the couch like interceding
Chills.
for me. She's interceding for me,
Mm.
and literally like the exact thought processes that I got walked through like by the Lord. Like he took me like back to my childhood, showed me moments where like he was there in those moments, and like showed me like
Wow.
why he made me this way. Like those were the type of things that she was praying over me,
Mm.
and it was just so amazing. I started crying because it was just direct confirmation that um like that what I just experienced was like from him, and
Yeah.
like he kind of just
Authentic,
like
real. Yeah.
yeah, he kind of just like stamped it, and
Mm.
it was just amazing. And I remember like my mom and I, we just both started crying, and I remember I giving her a hug, and we just had an amazing moment, and we just stayed
Mm.
up like the rest. Literally, we stayed up the rest of the night just talking about just like the Lord and stuff, and it was just amazing. And I literally like it's so funny. Like the next day, I literally didn't sleep. I think it was probably like at 12 p.m. So like in the middle of the day, and like I was so fired up from the night before. I was like, I don't even need food. I don't even need sleep. I have Jesus. I was like, I can do anything. Like I was just so fired up. Like
That's funny.
and so, but it was just amazing. And then the next night, so that was on a Friday night, and then the next night was Saturday. And I remember I was talking to the Lord again, and because I remember he told me I was called to ministry. So I was like, all right, Lord,
Yeah.
like where do you want me? Where do you want me to go for that? Like, what do you want me to do with
Right.
that? And I was like, Lord, do you want me to go to City Hope College? And he showed me a vision, like while I was still awake. Um, and it was basically in the vision, it was us like it was all the people in like City Up College, because I knew a few of them that were at a few
Mm.
people that were in the college, and we were all like outside the church, and we were playing football. And in this vision, like my friend Mitchell Falk, he's running the football, and I go to like two hand touch, like tag him off, and he just like puts this crazy like Tyreek Hill juke move on me out of nowhere, and just like breaks my ankles. I remember I just like I fell back on the ground, like I like folded like a pretzel, like. But I remember like
That's
everyone.
funny.
I remember I just started like dying laughing, like in the moment, and everyone around me was like laughing, and then, but it wasn't like like embarrassing laughter. It was just
Mm.
like it was like a humbling, like sweet, um like just like warm, like fuzzy, like yes, like this is where you're supposed to be. And I thought it was
Wow.
just so cool. And then also remember like in that vision, like after he just like overwhelmed me like with his presence, like and it's like I felt like so much at once, and it was just like an overwhelming like yes.
Wow.
And but I just thought it was so cool how he chose to show me that I was supposed to be at City Hope College, like in a way, like I was playing football, like outside the church,
Hmm.
something that
Yeah.
I used to like, that I love, and just showed me like playing it like in a different place, different setting, like
Wow.
where I'm supposed to be. And I
Mm.
just thought it was just so cool how he showed me that way. Uh,
Yeah,
and
which is kind of crazy because in my mind, I'm thinking like if God like told you, say God told you in your younger years, like that football was going to be a part of your story and that you are going to glorify God in football somehow, some way. It's kind of wild that he like shows you this vision of like, hey, it wasn't kind of what I told you that it was gonna, or that it seemed like it was gonna
Yeah.
be. I was going to use you through a different avenue. And then obviously, and as you pointed to, your name in the lockers, like we're going to humble you a little bit and put you in
Yeah.
a different
Right.
state, in a different way, and being juked out, obviously, which that would never happen,
Right.
being a D1 safety, being juked out by, I ain't taking
Yeah.
it, I ain't taking it away from my man's, but,
Yeah.
but like, but the honest truth is like, it's like a vision of humility, as you kind of alluded to. It's like, hey, look, we're going to lower ourselves so that we can serve the kingdom in a different capacity than that which you originally had in mind, which is obviously, as we kind of alluded to, your will, not mine. And that's how we should align ourselves. Dude, that
Right.
vision and like I hadn't paid attention to that vision and how it correlates to that, but there's so much in there. And I'm sure you're unpacking things daily, if
Yeah.
not, often. So that's good.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the cool thing about it. Like I remember like when I was talking to the Lord, I was like, Lord, like where have you been? Like why haven't I heard your voice before? And
Mm,
the thing that he told me was that I was too proud.
mm,
I was too proud to know God. And it says in James, or it's either 4:6 or 4:8, but it
yeah.
basically I think it's I don't know. But basically it says that
I'll
God
pull it up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But basically it says that
We put those numbers in there, man. So the numbers don't mean, if you know what it says, tell us.
right. It says that God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And so when I finally I just humbled myself,
Yeah.
that's what allowed me to receive his grace. But
Mm,
before, like I was so proud, and it doesn't say that God just he doesn't like the proud. It says that like he opposes them, like literally like Derrick Henry stiff arm, like
yeah.
he's like get
Yeah.
out of here, like. And
Right.
so that's why I wasn't able to like truly know him. And then another thing that he revealed to me was that he revealed to me that I was like a football player um, who believed in Christ instead of a Christ follower who
Mm,
played football.
that's
So like
good.
football was kind of like an idol, like
Mm,
and so, but I had no idea until like he revealed that to me. And then another thing too is I said earlier that I was like, Lord, like I need structure in my life, and I remember that night. Let me see if I can find it. It's in my notes real quick. What he told me.
dude, I have so many good notes saved that I need to start organizing them myself, get them fine tuned, be able to find it immediately, like keywords to
Yeah, I
search.
should be able to. Yeah, structure. Oh, he said, you need structure. You always have. It's how I made you. He said, what's a more structured thing, football or the one who created everything you even know about the word structure? And I was like,
Mic drop.
yeah,
These I created everything that's here. Football's
yeah,
great, and
yeah.
it's a it's
And
an it's
so,
a it's a mirror or an image of what I did, but it's just a little microcosm of the entirety of
right.
the world. That's so good.
And it was just so cool, and just how um, I realized that just his plan for my life is so much better. And actually, because of like this story that I went through a few weeks ago, I got to speak at this thing in West Mobile at Mary Montgomery High School. It was called Revolution, and um, there was probably like 400 something people there, and I got to share
Wow.
my this story to all those people. And
Yeah.
I found out after the event that there was a football player there who played at South, and that he heard my story. And when he heard my story, he realized that if he can be saved, I can be saved too. And he gave his life to Christ
But
because I was able to like share my story. And so it was just such a cool moment, like that. Like what the Lord's brought me through, and how I'm able to like use that. And I'm just so thankful for like the story that he's given me. And
mm,
I'm happy to be able to share it right now as well. But it's just so cool how his plan works.
Mm.
And I can honestly say that like every single good football play I've ever made, every single like good thing that I've ever experienced or done in my life, or like every good thing I've ever experienced, like having a personal like relationship with Jesus, like there's nothing like it. Like
Yeah.
I would give up football, like literally my whole career, like I would give that away to have like what I have now. And
Right.
it's just like I want to like scream it from the mountaintops, like
Yeah.
just like
That's
like
good.
but I think Paul talks about that somewhere where he's talking about like, and I don't want to butcher this, but it basically talks about like nothing compares to the infinite value of knowing Jesus Christ our Lord or something like
Yeah.
that. I might have messed that
Yeah.
up. If I did, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's pretty close. Like I said, dude,
Yeah.
you know, hey, as long as it's close and it doesn't, it's not heresy, so we're good. But that sounded solid. So
Yeah. Sweet.
yeah,
But yeah, man, it's just an amazing experience. And just every day he just keeps like taking me on this journey. And it's
that's good.
awesome.
That's good,
Yeah.
man. Gosh, there's so much to glean from that. If you're listening and you know you've struggled with something that you've placed above Christ in any way, shape, or form, and that could be your job, your work, it could be your family in some ways. I know, like it's easy for us to, especially in South Alabama, to be like, what about family? And no, well, family can be in front of that, and because there's a hierarchy of how that's supposed to work, but like career paths or sports, like if you're younger and you're listening to this and you're in college or whatever the case may be, an athlete of some sort, or you do dance or anything of that, like music, whatever the case may be, anything that you put above Christ, like ultimately he will come in, and he's not going to necessarily take it away like he did for Brady, but in some ways, like he's going to say, hey, look, we need to turn this down so that I can be the dominant voice, or the single voice really. And then from there, you can use your gifts, because he gifts us, like he gifted you with athleticism and all those things. And none
Mm.
of that will go void. Like you will be able to use that athleticism for something, not necessarily like direct, like I got to go be an athlete for the kingdom, but like in your
Yeah.
athleticism, you can go and play with those kids in Honduras, which we're not there yet, but like you can go and
Right.
play with them and they can just be like, wait, that's awesome. Like for me personally, when I was in Kenya, we stayed at this place that was next door to a school, and they were out in PE, I guess. I don't guarantee it's not physical education for them. It's just,
Yeah.
hey, go play. And I went out there and they were just kind of shocked that I could kick the ball with skill and juggle it, because I played a little soccer growing up. And they were just like, what the heck? Which that just brings down the walls to be able to share the good
Yeah.
news and to be able to be, known, and to share them of the God who knows them or loves them. And so, like, there's many ways that those giftings are going to be used, but most often it's a little different than we want them to be. And that's just so cool about your story, and especially that he gave you the vision and all that stuff to like connect all those dots. So good.
Yeah. But another thing I want to say too is that like whoever's watching this, like I'm no different than you, any more or less than you. I think it's Romans 2:11. It says that for God does not show favoritism.
Yeah.
That means that like just as like much as he wanted to speak to me, like he wants to speak to you as well. And it may not be in the same way. And so like it's a promise, like it's in the Bible that you can stand on that. And then
Hmm.
also another scripture, I think it's James 4:8. It just says, draw near to me, draw near to God, and God will draw near to you.
Yeah.
And um, so yeah, I mean, it's a promise. If you
Yeah.
draw near to him, he'll draw near to you. So I feel like I just wanted to put that part in there and emphasize, because
Yeah.
sometimes we can feel like, oh, like the Lord's like he's not speaking to me,
Right.
but he will. Like if you seek
Right.
him with everything, another scripture is Jeremiah 29:13, which is, if you seek me wholeheartedly, you will find me. And it doesn't say like half-heartedly, it says wholeheartedly, you will find
Wholeheartedly.
him. And
Yeah,
so
that's good.
I just wanted to give that as a bit of encouragement for whoever's watching and they want to like go after God. Like, you can do it. It's a promise, and He will speak to you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as you said, wholeheartedly, like your entire focus needs to be on that. You can't keep all these other things in your back pocket. You have to submit
Right.
them as well. Like, how, no, that's my gifting, God. You gave it to me, but I'm going to take it for myself. No, here you go. Take it, and I promise you. It's like to sum this up. It's like the cliche, very cliche meme that, or picture, I guess it's just a picture, it's not really a meme, of the little girl having a teddy bear in her hands and she's sad and she's standing in front of Jesus or God, whomever, God, I guess Jesus, and Jesus has a huge teddy bear behind and she just doesn't want to give the teddy bear over because she's like, this is my
Dang.
teddy bear. And yet if she gives it to him, he's going to give her the bigger teddy bear type of thing.
Yeah,
Like you give it to
that's
God
such a
and
good
he's going
analogy.
to return it. Not necessarily, we ain't trying to scream no prosperity gospel. Like
Yeah,
you're
no.
not going to, you're not going to multiply your gifts. You might, but that's just kind of the idea is like, hey, look, give him all that you have and he'll give you something better.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. And we won't get into the context of Job. And sometimes it's just not true. Like God's got different plans to, take you through different things. We won't get into that, but you've made it to the halfway point, and now we will talk about our listener retention gimmick, where we talk about prayer as well as a book. Today, I want to throw a blanket prayer out there for just the body of believers, and come against the spirit of apathy. Um, Apathy is a word that for me, I don't use often. However, it is so perfect. And it really just means without suffering or without passion. When you break it down, like, the A part and then pathos, pathos, you break that down, it's without suffering or without passion. Um, and the spirit of apathy on the church, now you can imagine what I'm thinking, is that we have become stagnant. We have become complacent as believers. We don't take on spiritual formation or take discipleship, becoming a disciple to the way of Jesus, that seriously. And I'm putting myself into that barrel as well, because I struggle with the spiritual disciplines and the rhythms of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And that is sharing your testimony and all the things of fasting, prayer, reading scripture, community, generosity, all the things, right? And I feel like we just need to pray. I feel like we need to pray that God would stir up in us passion and the willingness to suffer for the call that we have placed upon our lives. Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but I think that was necessary. Part 2, book. I have this book, and I'm reading it currently right now. Jonathan Pokluda. Really, I'm just shouting him out. Don't know him personally, but I do love his stuff. His stuff is always so good on social media. And this book is the first book I've read of his. Why do I do what I don't want to do? You can imagine what verse or which writer in the scriptures he is keying on here, but he breaks down all the major, like, opposing virtues, I guess you could say, the sins that we struggle with as Christians. He breaks them down and is very, very applicable on how we can overcome some of those things. Apathy is a chapter that I just finished in this book, and wow, it speaks to the world and the way that we're living today as Christians. So, great book. Jonathan Pokluda, JP. Follow him on Instagram. Let's jump back into this episode. Brady's testimony is powerful. Huh? Let's hear more about this mission trip. But dude, so let's transition, man. Dude, your testimony is
Yeah.
powerful, but now like I want to see how God is using you for the kingdom. You said you're in ministry school, so you're in City Hope College, and y'all just recently went on a mission trip to Honduras, correct?
Yes, sir. Or I don't know
Yeah.
why I just said yes, sir. I don't know why I just said yes, sir.
Well, I am
Sorry,
old,
though.
but I'm not that
Hey,
old. You're good.
cut that out. Cut that out. Cut that out. I'm kidding. No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
it's all good. But yeah, so y'all just got back what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now?
Yeah, I think it's about 3 weeks. Three
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
So yeah,
So
just
three
got
weeks.
back, and it was absolutely amazing. It completely, to be honest with you, it just changed my whole perspective of
Mm,
life. Now I know that sounds like the cliche thing to say coming off a mission trip, but
right.
it's so true. You hear about things that are going on in other countries, but whenever you actually go and see it with your own eyes and
Hmm.
like experience things right in front of you, it just does something to you. I remember like the most like impactful moment on the whole trip was whenever we did house visits, and so that was where we went to people's houses and they brought us into their homes and we just got to like talk to them and like hear like what their needs were, and we just got to
Mm,
pray for them and stuff like that. I just remember just in the moment of being in those houses, I couldn't even function. I was just so like the things I was seeing, like just the like how they were living just blew my mind.
mm,
I could not believe um like just their living situations. And I remember when we finished and we got back to the Dream Center, um, I went into the office at the Dream Center, and I remember like, I just couldn't help it. Like I just started like bawling, crying, and just because just like what I like felt for those people. Like I
mm.
remember like well the first thing I did was I repented to the Lord. I was like, I'm so sorry for how just ungrateful
Wow.
like I've been my whole life. Like I had no idea. Like, and I was like, Lord, you blessed me so much. And I made like in that office, like I made a vow to him that because he's blessed me so much that I'm gonna spend like my whole life like blessing others and stuff.
Mm,
But and just remember it just overwhelmed me. I remember
mm.
I had like a physical chest pain because of like what I like saw, and like it didn't go away for probably like 4 hours. Like literally just I could not shake it.
Wow.
And I was telling Pastor Ben Ragsdale, who's the pastor at the Mobile campus, City Hope.
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
telling about the same thing, and he was like, "That's really cool because it like in the Bible it talks about Jesus was moved with compassion uh, for people, and like that Greek word, I think it's compassion when it's translated in the Greek, it means like an actual like twisting of like the bowels, like twisting of
Mm.
of the
Like your
insides,
guts
and
turning. Yeah.
right, and so that's exactly what I felt, and
Wow.
it's just so cool because Jesus is like inside of me that like I felt what he felt like for
Yeah.
his
You
people.
encompass the heart of God like in that moment.
Right. It's just so cool that I was able to feel what Jesus felt like, and it's just really cool. It's also like very humbling, but that was definitely just the most impactful moment just for me
Mm,
personally.
yeah.
Um, and then there was just so many cool stories like where the Lord showed up while we were there. One story real quick was so on Friday night while we were there, they had this thing called Collective. And basically it's where like a bunch of kids meet at the City Hope Church campus in Honduras, and they just
Mm,
have like a giant youth service. And I remember the night before we were doing our debrief meeting, which is like we just talk about the day and then we end it with worship and stuff. We all prayed, we all asked the Lord to like give us a vision or give us something, give us somebody to pray for tomorrow. Like, and so I remember I was asking the Lord, like who do you want me to pray for tomorrow? And I remember he just I heard green shirt, and he said struggling with depression and anxiety, and that he wanted to like restore hope in this person. And I was like,
Wow.
wow, I was like, that's so specific. And so, anyways, the next day, I went to. We were at the Dream Center, and the Dream Center and the church are like separate. So collective was at like 7:30 that night,
Hmm.
but we were at the Dream Center probably at like 2 p.m. And
Yeah,
so
and
it's
for the people who don't know, like what is the Dream Center? Like, uh, there is it the same thing that's out in California? Just a
yeah,
campus that's there? Okay.
it's very similar. Basically it's just a place the kids can come and go. It's like a safe place where I mean they play soccer and sports there, and they get fed food, and like some kids like that's literally the only place they're
Mm,
able to like get food and stuff, because
mm.
Honduras is, they call it the fatherless nation because it's just against like the norm of their culture is that the father just doesn't have to raise their kids. That's just like a
Oh,
normal
wow.
thing. So there's
Wow.
so many broken families and
Mm,
people over there. And it's also the murder capital of the world, Honduras is, which
wow.
is crazy. And
That is
so
wild.
the Dream Center is like a place in the middle of all that that's like a safe place where kids can come and like learn about Jesus and get help with their just in life in general, and
Mm,
just like it's definitely a diamond in the rough over there, I guess is the best
yeah.
way to say that. And so, anyways, we're at this Dream Center, and it's probably like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm in the they call it the cafeteria area, but it's not really a cafeteria. It's just like an outside area with tables, and this kid walks in front of me, and he's wearing a green shirt. And you got to remember, the Dream Center is separate from the church. And
Hmm.
this kid walks in front of me, and when I saw his green shirt, I was just thinking to myself, I was like, that'd be so crazy if this was the kid that I'm gonna end up praying for tonight. And in
Hmm.
that moment, like the Lord spoke to me, and He was like, "That's him." And I was like, "No way!" I was like, "That's crazy." And then I started talking. I was like, "Lord," I was like, "What if he doesn't show up to this collective thing tonight?" Like, I was thinking, what if like we're out here playing soccer all day? Like, what if he doesn't wear the same shirt because he gets sweaty or
Hmm.
something?
Right.
Um, but the Lord again, He was just like, "That's him." I was like, "All right." I was like, "I'm gonna trust it." So fast forward 5 hours later to collective, I walk in, and I just start looking for the kid to see if he's here, see if he's there. And I remember I saw him in the lobby. Sure enough, he wasn't wearing the same shirt, but he was wearing another green shirt, which was crazy. And so collective was amazing, had an amazing service, and we get to the altar call moment, and I got to pray with one kid that came up to me, and I got to walk him through like giving his life to the Lord. That's the
Mm,
first time I've ever done that. And it was just it was so amazing.
that's cool. Was there a language barrier for that?
So that kid actually spoke English, so that was really easy uh,
Yeah.
because he spoke English. But most of them didn't speak English, so we
Okay.
would have a translator. But
Translator. Okay.
the even though we had a translator, like I feel like the language barrier was not an issue at all, which is really cool. Just
Nice.
like
Yeah.
how the Holy Spirit was doing that, and
That's
and
cool.
so and then I got to pray for another kid, and then after that I was like, all right, I'm going to find my guy, and so and he's in the back row, he's sitting in the back row, and he's got a gray jacket on, he put it on over his shirt, and I went up to him and I called him out of the back row, and I took him to the back, and Pastor Hezer, who was translating, called him over there, and I basically just told him about the night before, like what the Lord told me. And I was like, "Are you wearing a green shirt under here?" And I like unzipped his jacket, and he was wearing a green shirt, and the kid was just mind blown. He was like, "What?" he, was, he was, and so I was like, I felt like the Lord said, "You're going through this." I was like, I was like, "Please, like, just like tell me if I'm wrong."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I was like, I felt like the Lord said you were going through this, and this. And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I am." I was like, "Well, do you mind if I pray for you?" And he was like, "Sure." And so I got to pray for him, and at the end of it, he was like crying and stuff.
Mm.
He just got touched by the Holy Spirit. And it was just amazing. And then he went and sat back down. But at the end of it, they did like a thing where if you wanted to make a decision, like
Mm-hmm.
for God to like go down to the altar, and I watched that kid, and he sat there for about like 45 seconds, and then he got up and went down to the altar and like
That's cool.
gave his life to Christ. And it was just so cool that I got to
Wow.
that God used me to do that. It was
Mm.
just so amazing. So that was probably the coolest story like that happened.
Yeah, that's insane. Just the fact that y'all, took the time to pray for a vision or God to just show you someone to pray for the next day. Like, man, like what if we just did that daily? Like what if we were just like, hey,
Right.
God, give me a little opportunity. And we talk about that, but that's dangerous too. And there
Mhm.
was a good prayer series that I listened to a long time ago. I don't know who it was. Maybe Craig Rochelle. Don't think it was Craig Rochelle, but it was called Dangerous Prayers. And it was just like, hey, like we going one, I'm gonna put 23-24, which is a component of that is like show me where I'm faulty. Like God, show me where I'm faulty. That's dangerous in and of itself because he's gonna say, hey, look, you're doing this, and this, and this, and you need to figure it out. At least that's how he talks to you. For me, it's maybe a little bit. It's probably a little similar. I know he doesn't
Mhm.
communicate to everyone in the same way, but
Right.
like he has a gentleness. But from what I've understood and here in your story, he's kind of like, hey, you're proud. Let's uh let's figure this out, which is something that you're
Right.
receptive to, which is cool. But God's going to meet you where you need to be met. And so, and then
Right.
the
Right.
second component of that is that if we were to pray that and we say, hey, God, give me someone to talk to tomorrow, he might not say, hey, green shirt, black shirt, you
Right.
know,
Right.
Nike K Swiss with some green laces, like whatever. Like he might not get that specific, but you'll know it. You'll know whenever he
Mhm.
says, okay, sounds good. And then whenever you see him in public and you're like, this guy behind me, I'm supposed to ask him what's going on. I'm supposed to say, hey, dude, do you know Jesus? And it's like, if we were that bold to go and proclaim the news and ask for him to show us these moments, I'm telling you, gosh, revival truly would break
Yeah.
out, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's good.
And also, the thing, the there are some times when like I ask the Lord like to speak like that, and I don't get anything. Like he doesn't,
Right. Right.
he doesn't. Um, so it's just, I guess I'd say the key to it is just like just listen. They got to learn how to, and I'm not an expert at all, but like it's just something that, and there are times where like I thought I've heard something from the Lord, and it was actually like my own thoughts. And so
Mm. Yeah.
the key to it is like that's why it's so important to spend time with the Lord daily and
Yeah.
be like in the Bible and stuff and like reading the scriptures. So
Yeah.
that way when like he does speak, like you know it's him. And so
Right.
like if you
Well,
never
it's the same concept of like if there's 50 moms at the mall standing around the playground, sometimes they have a little playground inside of a mall. Like some mom screams, "Hey!" Doesn't say a name, doesn't say nothing. Hey, if
yeah.
it's your mom, you know it. You know
Yeah.
it's your mom.
That's a
You
great
like
yeah.
what's going on. But if it's somebody else's mom, you just ignore it and keep going. And so it's like in the same way, like you have to spend time in the
Mhm.
word because typically if he gives you a word, it's got to be not necessarily found in here. It doesn't have to be specific, but it needs to be backed by scriptures. Like it needs to. You will never get a word from God that does not correlate with the scriptures. That's most important. But like you said, like you got to get akin to his voice and know what his voice not necessarily sounds like, but like the rhythm
Mhm.
of his voice. Like I guess you could say is a better way
Right.
to say it.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I feel like I just got us off topic from the mission
No,
trip.
no, you're good, bro. You're good, man. So obviously y'all are there to, kind of just serve the Dream Center to, put on collective, which is, just like you said, it's a youth service. and then hit the streets ultimately and pray for people and meet the needs of those that were, somewhat just there before you, that you could meet those needs, man. So what was, obviously we've heard these stories, like what for you specifically was some of the biggest takeaways to how your faith, obviously being built on Christ, now is taking on different shapes and forms because of this trip, because of what you experienced there?
I'd probably say the biggest takeaway is just how, like, when doing ministry, like here, like in America, like we can get like so caught up in like the production side of things,
Mm,
like worship sets and like all the lights and like all the things that we think that we need for like to make ministry work. But like over there in Honduras, I realized that like all you need is God. Like all you need is
mm,
like the Holy Spirit for ministry. Like if the Lord's hand is on it, like you can literally, it doesn't matter what, like nothing can stand in the way of like ministry
yeah,
when like not me, like no, like it was just really cool to see that like for example, like just at the Dream Center, like I think they just had like one speaker and their microphone and then like someone playing a guitar or something, and just like the Holy Spirit just it doesn't matter. Just the Holy Spirit just showed up, and
yeah.
it was just really cool to see. Like I'd probably say that was the biggest takeaway, is that we don't need all the things that we think we need like to do
That's good.
ministry.
That's
Um,
good.
I'd probably say that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just the fact that like people are a group of people who are on the same mission, same focus, if you will, which is Christ. And they're just there to worship. No, nothing else,
Yeah,
no ulterior motive, no anything else. Just like, hey, we're here to encounter him. And then that can happen in any, I wouldn't say any setting, but that can happen in our settings, which we see that, like with the lights
yeah,
and the smoke and all that stuff. And that's like you said, and you're not, I know you're not saying this, that those are bad things.
right,
But if we strip that away and we get something different than encountering God, then are we really there for that? And that's what I recognize that in Kenya too. So like, you're not
hmm
alone in this. And if anyone's
yeah,
like, well, we need these and this, hey, I think they're great. I love having drums. Like I love having extra guitar, bass. I love having keys and all these things. Like those are beautiful. It makes the experience that much better when it sounds great and it's fun. It's whatever. Like, but like if we're not there to truly encounter him, then what are we there for? Like that's the question.
right.
And like in Kenya, like they had keys and they would play like literally. I have a keyboard in the attic, like the most cheap $70 keyboard that you can just hit one little track and it just plays this little melody. I'm not a musician, so I don't know all the terminologies. Forgive me if you are. Um,
I'm definitely not.
and I got a guitar right there, but it's I'm like, whatever.
Yeah,
And and the guys, he's talented on the keys, like he's very talented, but would they mess up or whatever the case may be, it's like just keep going. They'll like, if the keys go out, they literally will like look over there and be like, "You got it figured out? No, okay, sounds good. Let's just keep going." Like
that's cool.
they don't stop. And then the thing in Kenya, which I don't know if that happened over there, but like even the structure of a worship service, or like I have actually happened. So this was a little like launching of a sobriety, kind of like an AA type of Kenya AA, so sobriety, which I don't know if that's actually what it stands for, but it's like a sobriety launching for this place. But you see this
Yeah,
agenda, like we're gonna do preliminary talk, a word of God, group history, speakers, like all these things. Dude, they didn't go by this. They thought that we wanted. They thought that we needed this structure because this, like, they passed this out. Like, there's probably 5 printers among the people that were there. Like they
yeah,
thought that we needed that. And they didn't follow that. And in some of the worship services, they would literally, dude, crazy. I don't want to make this about Kenya, but I do like to kind of hammer on your point there's the worship services, dude. People would literally come from the crowd and take over singing, and just they'd be like, "All
Oh,
right, I'm
wow.
next. I'm jumping in line," and they would literally take the mic from somebody and they would just start singing. And half the time, it sounded like, obviously they're speaking Swahili, so I'm not 100% certain, but it sounded like they're creating their own verses too, like not
Mm.
wholly freestyling, but seemed like it. Like it
Yeah,
seemed like, hey, like, but not freestyling. They would change like to a different song, and the tempo would change a little bit, and they would just keep going. And it's just like, no, I feel like we need this worship song right now. Let's go. And it was just like, dude, I
that's so
cried.
cool.
And not like
Yeah,
that, they're dancing the whole time. They're just like, it's like true worship, freedom, all
yeah,
that. Like it is bouncing the whole time. Like it's so good. So
yeah. I
good.
think one of the coolest things I got to see over there was that true worship you just talked about. Like I
Mm,
remember I was watching all these like little kids worship, and just like the purity and reverence that they were
mm.
worshiping God with was just so. I couldn't. I started crying. I was like, this is so awesome." And I
Yeah.
remember we were singing a song, and it's that song where it's like, "And all the," I can't sing, but it basically
Yeah.
says, "I'm not gonna sing." It basically says,
All right, let's
all
let,
the.
let's let's just try it. Let's try to sing it together on three. One. No, I'm just
All right,
kidding. But yeah,
I was down. Basically the song
um,
says, "And all the earth will shout your
shout
praise."
your praise. Yeah.
And so it was just so cool, like being in a different country
Hmm.
and like hearing like, "And all the earth will shout your praise."
Yeah.
There you go. That
And
was
all the
pretty good.
little voices
Uh,
echoing. Yeah, that was
yeah,
solid, dude. 10 out of
and
10,
then
dude. You need to sign up for worship, bro.
I don't know about that, but it was just so cool because I was in another
Yeah.
country and I was like, wow, like all the earth is shouting His praise, and it was
Yeah.
just such a cool moment um, that I got to experience, and
That's cool.
just
Gosh.
it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a moment like that in Kenya that was very similar. And it was, we sang a song. I think we sang a song in English and they sang it because they knew it in Swahili. So at the same time, we're singing in our native language and they're singing in theirs, and it was just like a collective of voices at
Yeah,
once. It
yeah.
was so powerful. It was so cool.
That
Man,
happened too. It's just
did
like
y'all do that too?
yeah, I thought there was going to be like a huge language barrier, that it would like be hard to like, I don't know, talk to people, but
Mhm.
it just didn't exist. Like I remember the first night of the trip, we had like a dinner with like the City Hope staff. It's at this like a resort place or something like that, and me and my buddy Jeremiah and Joey, we sat outside at this like it was like an outdoor, I don't know, like hangout area with two of the staff members from uh, the San Pedro Sula campus, and literally they didn't know English and we didn't know Spanish, and but we had a conversation for like 2 hours. We were just like cutting up and laughing, had the greatest time. Didn't have a translator or nothing, and it was just like it was just so cool, like because we're all believers, like
Mhm.
it unified us, and like we were just having such a good time. We couldn't even understand each other. It was crazy. I don't even know how to explain it. Like we were
That's
just like
wild.
we were just like the whole time, like we were trying to teach each other's language without knowing
Mm.
anything about the other language.
That's
And
so funny.
but it was hilarious. Like they taught me what bumblebee was, which is a veja or something like that. Like
That's
literally, like
hilarious.
just I don't know. It was just so cool. Like that was probably one of my
So,
favorite nights as
so they would
well.
just point.
Like
They would just point at something and be like, "Veja,"
or like
kind of thing.
so I would describe, like I would just think of a random object, and like for example bumblebee, like I just did this, I was like bzzz, like like describing it, and then I would like
I play
uh
Pictionary with languages.
and then I think it's Maria
I think
yellow.
you're right. I think so.
Anyways, I said those and they're like aveja, and so I was like aveja, and just like
That's
little
cool.
things like that. Like it was just so much fun. And their nickname for me was they called me Frankenstein, which I don't know why. I don't know why they I don't know why they called me Frankenstein, but that was their nickname for me. But it was just really funny. Like they just looked at me and they were like Frankenstein, and so for the
That's
whole
weird.
trip, like they just
That
called
is
me I
funny.
don't know. But it was just fun, man. It was just so awesome. Like going to another country and
Mhm.
experiencing like a different culture, and things like that, and
That's cool.
just completely changed my perspective. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's good. Well, so let's wrap this up, man. So, what's something that you would want to say to someone who's thinking about going on a mission trip, to anywhere really? But like, what are the things that you would want to tell someone?
Yeah,
Which there's probably not much you need to tell someone. It's just like, hey, be ready, kind of thing. But
right.
like, what were the things that you would tell someone who's ready to go on a mission trip?
The first thing I would say is that if you're on the fence about it, you need to go ahead and jump over the fence and you need to go.
Mhm.
Like you need to do it. I think every single person, every single Christ follower believer at some point in your life, like you need to go get on foreign
Mhm.
soil. Like it just like it's just something you can hear about the things, but it's just so different when like you see them in front of you and like you think that you're going to minister to those people, but in reality, like they turn around and they minister to you more. Um, so it's just so cool. Like I got ministered to by those kids, just like how loving they were and just how thankful
Yeah,
their hearts were, even though they don't have much. And so I would say just number one, just do it. And like you said, be ready, be open, and just be ready to grow for sure.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you're willing, like the Lord, He'll use you, and
yeah.
uh, it'll change your life for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right, and I think being prayed up is just so
Yeah,
king on the lead up to it, just in terms of equipping and you know, like you said, those or like the story you alluded to with the green shirt kid. It's like that doesn't happen without being fervent in prayer and
right.
constantly seeking Him, and God's wanting to show up in those ways. Like He's
Hmm.
wanting to use you and your voice and what you've done or what He's done in you ultimately to speak to those people.
Yeah, and another thing too is that I would recommend is before the trip, we all, well, not everybody, but I fasted for a week, and I feel like that really like
Yeah.
allowed me to be, I don't know, like more, I don't know. I feel like that just, it definitely did something and it cleared the
Yeah.
way for things to happen. So if you are going to
Yeah.
go on a mission trip, I'd recommend a fast before as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I think that's something in
Yeah.
America, which I'm going to have a podcast, an episode on that one day in the future of fasting.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
more and more I read scripture, the more and more I pay attention to people who are on different waves, which some of the people in Kenya, they fast every Monday, Tuesday, like no food whatsoever, which is really cool. But yeah, like that's something that's definitely going to happen. So I 100% agree. Fasting is something that is a major rhythm that or should be a rhythm in our lives as Christian. Jesus says, "Oh, y'all didn't cast out that demon. You know why? Because you weren't praying and
Mm.
fasting." And
Yeah.
it's like, and he says, like, literally, you can only cast those types out by, you know,
Mm.
praying and fasting, something along those lines. Don't take,
Yeah.
but that's literally like, it's like, whoa, all right.
Yeah.
So there's some
That's
importance
so
there.
good. That's good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
some importance there. So, any last thing you want to say to anybody that's listening to this that might have something similar to your story, whether it's like an idol or a god that they've put before, or whatever the case may be? Like, what closing notes do you have for us?
I would say like back to what like I hit on earlier, which is Romans 2:11, for God does not show favoritism. And so that he doesn't love me any more than or less
Mm,
than he loves you, and that if you seek him with your whole heart, you will find him. And then also the last thing is God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So
yeah.
if there's anything in your life that is taking the place of the Lord, like
Mm,
you gotta be careful with that.
yeah.
You might be getting opposed, I guess. So like
Yeah.
he has to be the center of everything.
That's
But
good.
if you do make him the center of everything, I can speak from personal experience. Like you will not regret it. He made us to have a relationship with him,
Hmm.
and so that he could love us and we could love him. And so
That's good.
yeah, that's what I would say to everyone out there.
Good. Yeah, man, that's good. I love that, man. And first off, like before we even hopped on this, I'll share with y'all a little bit. Like before we even hit play type of thing, I just told Brady that like the way he carries himself is so powerful. And if you know Brady, you know this. You know he carries himself in such a way that is gentle and humble and lowly. And I don't know Brady before Christ or the encounter that he had
Was
2 years ago or whatever. But like I do know that you carry yourself in a way that and I said the word naive, but I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in such a way that's like you're willing to come in any conversation and just be gentle and listen. You're so attentive, and you don't come in with, some people come into conversations, myself included, as we talked about, like with an agenda or with this ideal already built out and mapped out of how they want the conversation. I don't feel like you do that. Maybe you do, but like I really feel like that you do that. And I feel like me and all the listeners need to encompass that. And I just want to thank you for being a vessel, for hopping onto the podcast and being exuding the gentleness and meekness that you do on a day-to-day basis, man. So I appreciate it much.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Absolutely, dude.
Thank you,
Absolutely,
man.
man. Like I said, dude, like we should, especially us men, should encompass that because so often we are built ourselves up on this pride, and it's evident that God's cut that pride out of your life. Not that you don't deal with it still, because you probably still do. All of us
Right,
do,
for
but
sure.
He's definitely lowered that down and knocked those legs off of the pride that you had previously. And dude, keep going. Don't stop.
Thank you, man.
Keep pursuing Him, man, and keep sharing your testimony. It's powerful.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on as well. I really appreciate
Absolutely,
it.
bro.
All right,
Absolutely,
man.
man. We'll catch up again here soon.
All right, man. I'll see you later.
All right, bro. Be good. Thank you so much for listening to this episode featuring Brady Wiggins. What a testimony, huh? And the stories of Honduras. I was trying not to make it about Kenya, but there were so many overlapping things there. So sorry if I did that. But goodness, what a testimony. Just the moment where he said his mom was praying at the same time that he was getting the downloads from the Lord and the Lord was speaking to him. I literally cried the first time I heard that. Like I was just like chills of like the power of prayer, the power of just God and how He works. Many of you mothers that are listening to this, that's just a testament of how you and us fathers as well, which I'm not a father, but men can be praying for our children or loved ones or lost friends or anything, like testament to all of us of how we can be interceding for those people and that God will show up. God is going to show up. He always does. He always will. Might not be in the timing that we want it to be, but He does. And so Brady, his story is awesome. His story is powerful, and he's living it out every day. If you know him, you know that he's just always full of joy and exuding God's goodness everywhere he goes. And man, what a gentle spirit, not in like a sissy way. I don't want it to come off that way, but in just like the most meek and mild demeanor. Like when you think of Jesus and how He walked across, the earth and the plains during His time, like you could almost see and sense that He just had this easiness about Him. And Brady exudes that. And so us men should take that and say, you know what? That's something I need to learn from him. I mean, he's 8 years younger than me, maybe. And I look up to him in that way. And so I'm grateful for Brady and what he stands for and how he shows characteristics of Jesus. And I hope these stories of Honduras has either challenged you or maybe if you were on the brink, encouraged you to take a mission trip and to share God's goodness to the world, to the ends of the earth, as Jesus says. But that doesn't mean that you can't share it here, now, in your Jerusalem, in your Judea, in your immediate regions. And that's the whole point of this podcast. So thank you for tuning in. His email will be down below. He doesn't have socials. And our email will be down below for you to submit those prayer requests. and follow us and listen to all the clips that we will post on socials. So thank you again for listening to Live in the Sermon podcast, and stay tuned for next Monday's episode, maybe with a pastor that we all know and love. Anyways, have a great day.